Hi, this is Michelle, and I am the Love Decoder. Sometimes in relationships, we start off with so much excitement, so much passion. We want this to work so badly. And then later on, we get into the relationship and we just give up. Well, today, what we are going to be talking about is how to fix those problems, how to have a successful relationship. Love is not war. So why are we keeping score and killing the connection? I am a life coach, a hypnotherapist, and I have been working with people for over 20 years, helping people transform their lives to get in a different state of mind, to be more productive. But what I've uncovered through all my explorations with all of my clients is the biggest problem with success in their business, in their life, with their family, with their friends. It all comes down to love. People have forgotten how to love. People have forgotten how to keep love, whether that's with your friends or with your family or with a partner. So I'm here to decode that and bring love back into the world. Love is not war. Wow. What a subject, right? Because most of us feel like it's war. All of you guys out there that are struggling with connecting with someone. I've been talking to a lot of people lately, and I have discovered that a lot of people are giving up. Men are afraid of dating. Women have just literally said, if it happens, it happens. If not, I'm just going to live my life. People have given up. And that's because relationships are turning into toxic destruction or beating up on each other. But that's because that's all we see in the world right now. That's our influence, right? What do we see out there? People are fighting over religion. People are fighting over politics. People are fighting over anything and everything that they can fight over. And they're even fighting in relationships. We've become very polarized. We've become very close-minded. And we have literally taken love out of the equation. So, why are we keeping score? Why is it that we feel like we have to one-up? So somebody says something that's hurtful to you. Oh, so you got to come back and hurt them even more. And then they come back and they hurt you, and then you hurt them and they hurt you. And then suddenly, one or both of you let it affect every aspect of your life. Perhaps it affects your job. You go into work and you're just beat down emotionally. Perhaps it affects how you're responding in your own life, like you're not getting out and having fun anymore. You've just given up. It's like everything inside of you is drained. Every part of you is being deconstructed. So what is the solution? The solution is to remember who you are. Remember who you are. This isn't really about religion, but hey, me, if you've ever followed me before, I'm a spiritual girl, so I always throw those little twists in there, whether you're religious or not. Let's just use this as a metaphor then. In the beginning, God created man in the image of himself. So what is that image? God is pure love. If you've ever listened to people who have near-death experiences, it's all about the love and the ultimate experience of this epitome of acceptance and love. And if he created us in that image, what has happened to us? We're allowing the dark lord of the world to influence us through TV, movies, social media. And you're allowing that darkness to get inside of your life, inside of you. So how do you fix that? You've got to anchor yourself back into love. Remember who you are. You are a being of love, the spiritual being. So take a deep breath with me right now and channel that energy. Bring God back into yourself. Bring that light back into yourself. Bring whatever it is that you believe, even if it's the universe. I don't care. Bring that positive energy back into you. And ask yourself, how do you want to be treated? Treat people the same way. That golden rule, right? Treat people the way you want to be treated. You've got a conflict in front of you, and the other person doesn't know how to do conflict resolution very well. Maybe you need to be the person that steps up and says, okay, let's back up for a second, and show them how to step through the conflict resolution in a positive, more constructive way. And sometimes you just have to step away from the situation. Now, I'm not telling you to stay in a toxic situation where there's abuse. But what I am saying is that we're all human beings. And sometimes we react and we say things that we really don't mean or even regret. Let's just say hypothetically that somebody that you love is having a bad day. Maybe somebody died. Maybe they're having a hard time at work. Maybe their job's on the line. And they're just right there on the edge. Maybe they spout off to you when they come home and say, you left the light on in the kitchen. Or you're overflowing the trash again. The best thing to do is to not come back and say, well, you are a narcissist. You are controlling. You always picking on me. Why are you doing this? Blah, blah, blah. And starting a fight. Okay? Somebody is not going to fight with you if you don't fight. If you just stand. Stand. That's it. I'm not telling you to take the shit. What I'm saying is don't give them something to argue with. I remember a client of mine that I was helping with her relationship. And originally she had told me that she needed me to help her get strong enough to leave her husband. Now she had been married like 35 years. And she's ready to leave her husband. She's in her late 60s and she's like, I'm done. He's impossible to live with. So I gave her some tools. And I said, well, the first thing while we're getting strong is I need to learn how to deal with him differently. So I told her, here's what I want you to do. The next time he comes in the room on a rampage, just nod your head and say, okay. So she decided to do that. He comes in the room and he's like upset about this and upset about that. And he's going on his little rampage like he does. And she just nods her head and says, yep. Okay. Just looks at him, smiles, nods her head. Okay. Okay. And he went on for a little while. And then finally, when he exhausted all of the energy that he had with all of his complaining, he stomps out of the room and he exits for a while. Suddenly she's wondering, where is he going? What is he doing? He's gone for like 30 minutes. And he comes back and he says to her, you know what? And she goes, what? Very calmly. He says, you're absolutely right. And she looks at him and she goes, and what am I right about? And he said to her, and this is where it gets really funny. He said, this is all me. I'm the one that has a problem. I have a temper, I have an issue, and I need to be nicer to you. She said that she almost choked on her own saliva. She was like, oh my freaking God, this worked. And she sat back and she said, okay. Didn't say anything else. Didn't come back and throw a dig at him. Say, well, I'm finally glad that you came to this conclusion. She just smiled and said, okay. Now, the reason why this works is because when you argue with somebody, you're giving them something to be mad at. They're mad because you left the light on. Then you throw something at them. Then they feel personally attacked. So now they're mad about the light and the personal attack. So then they attack you. And then you're mad that they're bringing up more stuff. So you come back and you throw more. And you did this. And that one time you did that. You're not removed from having issues and doing things wrong too. And so you start bringing up everything that's wrong with them. And then they start to feel as if you have broken them. And maybe that was your purpose. You were trying to break them so they wouldn't break you. But hurt people hurt people. So if you're trying to hurt somebody because they hurt you, all you're doing is creating more hurt. And it always breaks apart. That is not a way to salvage a relationship. The way to salvage a relationship is to talk and to communicate. And once you get into a calm, quiet space where everybody's calmed down, you can sit down and have an actual conversation. We're going to take a break and be right back. Hey singles looking for like-minded professionals like you? Join Events and Adventures with 30 different events each month. The best part? We plan it all for you with everything from dancing on rooftops to cinema nights and exhilarating go-kart racing. There are endless ways to form meaningful connections, lasting relationships, and maybe even find the one. It's time to add living your best life to your list. At Events and Adventures, we focus on bringing quality and safety to our club. If you are tired of dating apps, scammers, and bots, join Events and Adventures where you meet quality professionals in a safe, in-person environment. So go to eventsandadventures.com right now and put in the code MT180 and get a free 6 months added onto the membership of your choice. I've actually used this technique a lot with Shane. I remember when I first started dating him, he was full of fire and energy, and all these things that I loved about him would turn the other direction. All that fire and energy could turn into arguments or complaints. And I would argue back with him, and it would turn into days of fighting and war. And what do we do? Are we going to break up? One day when he was calm, I sat him down and we were actually playing this game. He actually came into my office and he was joking around. He was in a good mood and he said, "I'm going to be the therapist." And I said, "Oh, okay." And so he sat in my chair saying, "So why are you here?" So I thought, you know what? I'm going to take this and use this to my advantage. And I said, "Well, I'm in this relationship with this guy that I really, really like. I have so much fun with him and he's got such a great personality. And oh my God, the passion and the excitement and the chemistry is just out of this world. He's got a really hot temper and sometimes he just starts complaining about things that aren't really important. And he starts these big fights and he leans forward and he says, 'Why do you give it any power?'" I was really shocked. I was like, "What?" And he said, "Just let it roll off of you like a duck's back. Maybe he was just having a bad day." So I paused for a second and I said, "Okay, let's stop playing reverse psychology, you being the therapist, da 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 da." I said, "Let's have a real conversation right now. Are you telling me that's the way I should handle you? That I need to just let you have your little spout and just ignore it?" And he goes, "Well, I'm not telling you to ignore me because that might piss me off, but don't let it bother you. Just kind of nod your head and know that it's going to pass because most of the time it's because of something else." So we started talking. Literally asked him, "What do you want me to do when this happens? How do you want me to respond when you do this?" So the next time he came into the living room and he saw that the kitchen light was on and he was in one of his moods. And he said, "You left the kitchen light on again." And I just nodded my head. And he comes up and he walks right up to me and he says, "Did you hear me? I said you left the kitchen light on." And I said, "I really appreciate you telling me and reminding me. Thank you." I didn't give him anything to argue with, right? So he literally leaves the room, goes into the bedroom for a little while, stays gone for like 10 or 15 minutes, comes back and he's like, oh, you know what? They just came out with this new movie, blah, blah, blah. Do you want to go see it?" And I sat there dumbfounded. I was like, what the heck just happened? What happened was I didn't give him my power. And this being the first time this happened, I paused for a second and I said, what just happened? And I said, can we talk for a second? And he goes, sure, sure. What is going on here? I feel like I'm in the twilight zone. Let me ask you a question. Honestly, I know I really haven't done anything wrong, and I always leave the kitchen light on all the time, and I forget, and it's not news, and sometimes you overlook it, sometimes you don't care, and sometimes you get pissed off about it. Today, you just stepped away. Is there something else going on with you? Because do you remember when we had this conversation before, you were, it could be work, or it could be this. Is it work that's causing you to get agitated really easily? And he said, yes, I'm so frustrated with Brandon. And I said, what is Brandon doing now? And he said, he's just so frustrating. Effing Brandon. And I started laughing, which Brandon was his boss at the time. I said, oh, we should nickname him that. Make that his new name, Effing Brandon. And he started laughing, and we just started saying it together like really loud. Effing Brandon, Effing Brandon. And he started laughing, and the whole energy just shifted. We talked about what was going on. I kind of shifted the tone a little bit. And I said, okay, tell me what is actually happening. And he said, he's running his company. He's doing this. He's not taking advice from the people that have had more experience than him. And he's not listening. He's just so focused in on what he thinks should happen. I'm afraid that his business is going to fall apart because he won't listen to anybody else, and he keeps on almost like a rubber band that bounces right back. He starts to listen, and then he goes back to doing the same thing that's not working. And I said, yeah, I've worked for people like that before, and it's really uncomfortable. So I acknowledged, okay, and I said, well, have you ever thought about kind of acting sort of like a mentor, like a brother, sort of like, maybe it's your job to gently guide him. Maybe your approach needs to shift in the way that you're talking to him. You have so much experience. You were a business owner. You know how to navigate things a little bit differently, especially problem solving. And he sat down and he really listened to me, and I gave him some pointers on things that he was really good at. And it was like this whole mood shifted. But here's how I did it. I met him where he was. Evan Brandon, that high intensity energy into laughter. Then I altered the state, calmed my voice, and I started complimenting him. This is where you're strong. This is where you can shift the energy. This is how you can make some changes in his business. Compliments. Empowering him, right? And then he shifted his energy. Everything shifted. We ended up having a good night, and then we were able to have a really great conversation. Everything shifted. And through the years, I ended up learning this little saying that my mom told me a long time ago, really stuck with me, that you can attract more flies with honey. The whole point behind this is you can accomplish more by being sweet, by being kind. Now, again, please don't mistake this for being a victim, okay? We're not talking about victim mindset. I'm not asking you to retreat into a hole and feel like you've just gotten treated like a whipped dog. I'm asking you to find that courage and love and try to understand that we're all human. We all have bad days. We all have moments. Even I have those bad days, but I redirect it differently because I am in control of myself. So I have a tendency of sitting Shane down. I use him as my bouncing board, and I'll say, I need to talk. And I'm really frustrated right now. This feeling that I'm having right now, just know it's not about you. It's just I got to get it out. I'm really upset. And what I need is somebody just to listen. Let me express myself. Let me get some of this out. And sometimes I need advice, and I'll say, I really need somebody to give me a fresh perspective. And sometimes I say, I don't want any advice. I just need to get this out. I need to talk about this. Can you just listen? So I tell him exactly what I need. That way he's not like offering advice when I don't want it. I don't need any mansplaining, and I don't need any, because I really know what to do. I just need to get all this frustrated energy out. And I tell him that right off the top. That way I'm not doing to him what he used to do to me. I started teaching him that same thing. I started noticing when he was getting a little edgy. I'd wait until the right moment and I'd say, hey, what's going on? Is it work? Is it this? Is it that? We would have these great conversations. I'd ask him what he needs from me. Do you want to just talk it out? Do you need some help thinking it out? Do you want some pointers? What do you need? And that's the part that I think that in relationships we miss. Okay, whether you're a man or a woman, A, we don't tell the partner what we need. And B, sometimes we give the partner what they don't need. Sometimes they need to be hugged. Sometimes they need to just be taken out to escape from the problem. We just assume that if you were in this situation, this is what I would need. So you start trying to do it and then they're not receptive, right? Have you ever been in a situation where your partner's like so frustrated and you're like, let me take you out. And then they say, I don't want to go out. I'm just going to go to bed and take a nap. And then you're frustrated because you feel like they're not allowing you to help them and you feel disconnected. The other person is like, oh my God, what I just needed him to do was listen. Or, oh my God, what I really needed him to do was just hold me. And vice versa. Sometimes we're giving what we think we need instead of just asking that question. And this is where relationships fall apart because it's not constructive conversations. It's not constructive communication. I want to ask you today, how are you managing your relationship? I want you to think about all the relationships in your life, your partnerships, your love, romantic, companionship, friendship, family. How are you managing them? I can tell you that every single time I manage it wrong, I definitely learn from it. Are you learning? And I know everybody's different. I have 2 kids that have 2 different personalities. I have a mom who has a completely different personality, a sister, a brother, and a whole bunch of nieces and nephews, and everybody's got different personalities and different needs. And each one of them needs something different. But the one thing that I have learned is to say, what do you need from me right now? What do you need? I hope that you've enjoyed this and maybe gotten something out of it. And I ask you to try some of these techniques. Apply them into your life and see how it changes your relationship. And remember, Rome wasn't built in a day. You didn't destroy your relationship overnight. So this is something that you're going to have to mentally be cognitive about and do on a regular basis. Love isn't war. So stop keeping score. It's killing your relationship.